Hi, welcome back to the shed, because at long last it's time for a brand new build. And you've all seen the thumbnail already, so there's absolutely no surprise what it is. It's going to be my version of a Gretsch 6120. Now, I've wanted to build this guitar for quite a long time now. It's been on my to-do list for ages, but I've always known that it's going to be a really long job and it's going to take me quite a lot of time. And to be honest, I just haven't had the time to dedicate to a project like this for a little while. But before I even start, I just want to make one thing perfectly clear. This is going to be a long job. It is going to take me quite a long time. There is a lot of work additional to building the guitar that's going to have to be done. I'm going to have to make a lot of jigs, I'm going to have to make a lot of templates and all sorts of stuff. And I'm going to detail everything. I want this to be a complete guide to how to build such a guitar. So if people have got the tools, they should be able to follow along with this and make their own version. So it will be very detailed and there will be lots of episodes, so it will take some following along with, but hopefully by the end we'll have a really nice result, but also a resource that other people can use if they want to build their own. There will of course be a super edit right at the end, so if you just want to watch a very condensed version you can, but just not yet. Unlike the Johnny Ramone Mosrite that I did recently, this isn't kind of a replica of any particular person's guitar. There are so many people who I grew up listening to who play these guitars. I could have done any number. Brian Setzer, Poison Ivy out of the Cramps. Personal favourite, Kirk Brandon out of Theatre of Hate / Spear of Destiny had one of these that he played up until quite recently but had to retire because it was just getting too old apparently. And of course some of the people that perhaps I didn't listen to quite so much but played these as well. Clapton used to play one, Pete Townshend's got one, Joe Walsh gave him it, Joe Walsh has got one too. And it goes without saying of course Chet Atkins, who this is basically a signature model for. One of the big problems that I encountered when I was planning this build is there isn't any such thing as a 6120. They changed an awful lot over the years. Sometimes they changed within the year. Often features were changed within batches of them. So changes came along at a very regular basis, and over the years it has changed quite a lot. My guitar that I build is probably going to be a little bit of a mashup of all of those. So I'm going to select my favourite features from across the years and kind of morph them all into one guitar. Presently I'm thinking single cutaway, 2.5-inch thick body, and without some of the like really fancy stuff that they put onto some of the early ones. So they did have block inlays with all sorts of engravings on them. I'm just going to go with what they call the neoclassic inlays, or the thumbnails, which is probably what they're better known as. I'm also not going to go with some of the features of the wiring. The infamous mud switch isn't something I'd use, so I can't see the point in putting it on in the first place. And there are also some bits that I can't replicate because I simply don't have the equipment. So for instance, I won't be able to laminate the top and the back because I just don't have the kit to do that. So I'll be carving mine out of solid maple. So that's an explanation of what I'm going to be doing over the next couple of months. But I think the best thing we can do now is get down on the bench and just have a look at where I am at the moment and what I need to be doing to get the first stages of this build underway. And I have made a start, but I haven't really got too far with things. All I've done so far is I've made my basic template for the body. I've done this any number of times on videos, so if you want to know how I've done this, just literally go back and have a look at one of the first episodes of pretty much any of my builds, and it demonstrates that. I've just traced out the shape that I need from a plan that I've downloaded from the internet onto some tracing paper. I've stuck it onto 6mm MDF and cut it out. I've got the F-holes on there. I'm not going to cut them out of this template. I'll do that separately once I get to that stage. That seems like a very, very long time in the future though, so I ain't going to worry about it just yet. The plan that I got was a very, very basic shape. It's just literally the shape of the body and the headstock. I haven't been able to find any plans at all to do this build, so I'm going to be working from this template, measurements and kind of guile and ingenuity, and I'm sure we'll get there in the end. This is the first in a long list of templates and jigs and things that I need. Some of them I already have because I needed to make them for my 335 build, which I did a number of years ago. Long-term viewers might remember that. Others I'm going to have to make from scratch. The first thing I want to do is make the ribs that are going to form the outside of the body. And the reason I'm going to do them first is because I'm going to have to steam bend them, and I want to leave them to dry as long as possible before I do anything else with them, like stick the back and the top on. So it makes sense to do those first, and then while I'm doing the other bits, they can be drying. But to do that, I'm going to need two things. I'm going to need bending forms for them to be bent on, and I'm also going to need a body mould for them to fit into, and we can clamp them in position whilst they're drying and we know that they're not going to move. Those are going to be the first two things that I make, and the first element in that is I'm going to make the bending forms. Obviously you need two, one for the top and one for the bottom. I'm going to make them out of 18mm MDF. The body depth I'm going for on this one is going to be 2.5 inches. They varied over the years from about 2 3/4 down to, I think some were nearer 2 inches thick, but I'm going to go with 2.5. I think that's a kind of a nice kind of in between size, which means I'm going to need something about 50mm thick to bend the ribs onto. So that means multiple layers of MDF. So I'll start with this great big sheet of MDF. I think I need to cut this down into about 280mm slices widthwise. So I'm going to need 3 for each half of this. It's going to take ages to cut down because it won't fit on the bandsaw, so I'm going to have to do it by hand. So I'm going to use the magic of editing just to make things a little bit more interesting. And basically all I need to do is I'm going to place the top of that right up against the edge of there, all round. And then just square them off. Like that. We can fire this over to the bandsaw. Once I've got it roughed out, I can kind of fasten this back on and use this as a template to pattern route it, and then we can pattern route the other two from this one, get them fastened together, drill some holes into it around the perimeter, and we've got our first bending form. And then nothing we haven't seen before. Bit of super glue and masking tape. Stick this in position. Then I'll break out the larger of my two routers with a pattern bit in and just get that cut to shape. Now you might have seen there was an absolute ton of dust coming off the router, and MDF dust isn't particularly good for you. So always remember to wear a good quality mask when you're machining MDF, and also remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Okay, and there it is. Finally, after an awful lot of drilling, I've got that sorted out. I hit 2 screws, drilling all these holes. Luckily, one of them was smack in the middle, so I was just able to remove that. The other one was off to the side, so I've had to kind of drill down to reach it before I could remove it. But that's not too bad in the grand scheme of things. Drilling the holes was the worst bit of this. It just took forever because the drill bit kept clogging up. But we've got that done. And also off camera, I've done the other half as well. So we've got both of the forms that we need to proceed with bending these ribs. However, there's no point even thinking about bending them until we've got the final part in the little jigsaw of this bit, which I shall show you now. And that's the body mould. Now this is a body mould for a guitar I made ages and ages ago. It's the purple one. Obviously it's the wrong size, it's the wrong shape, and it's much too thin. So I need to kind of strip this back to bare basics and then kind of repeat what I've just done, but kind of the inverse, if that makes sense. So we then have a mould to put our ribs into. I'm going to make the mould slightly shallower than the forms. It's going to be about 6 mil thinner because I'd need access to the top of what we're working on to do the work that I need to. So it won't be quite as chunky as what we've done today, but it will still be significantly big. However, that is all for the next episode. So I'll be back in a couple of days' time with that. Until then, don't forget to hit like if you enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.